Hey everybody, I want to talk about a product and platform that I absolutely love and our latest sponsor, Interseller, the prospecting and outreach platform of choice for recruiters and sellers. Whether you're doubling down on business development or recruiting talent, Interseller does all the heavy lifting of finding contact data, automating the email and follow-up process, and syncs all that rich data into 20 plus CRM and ATS platforms. Reach out now and get going on a 2-week free trial and let them know you heard about it from Adam on the podcast today. Check out the link on the website. Appreciate it.
Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast, where I bring you the best and the brightest from the world of business, marketing, and entrepreneurship to help you harness your inner tenacity and drive your career forward. I am confident that my guest today might be the most interesting man in the world. And I was first introduced to him through our mutual friend, Dan Modell, and as they say, the rest is history. I go back to our first convo, Doc, and I swear I kicked myself in the ass for not hitting the record button that first time we ever spoke, because that would literally be the best podcast ever. So we're going to try to repeat that today. So a little bit of background for everybody. Here's the formal background. Dr. Simon Mills has a 35-year track record of innovation and execution in startup and growth stage companies, both as a founder and an advisor. He is a serial entrepreneur and founding partner at Ignition Capital. You ready for this one? With a background in media, marketing, music, digital communications, advertising, software platform development, brand architecture, tech startups, enterprise software development, writing, web development, system design, graphic design, finance, and business. I think he knows a little bit about everything. He's a jack of all trades and a master of many. So enough of the fun formalities. Let's get to it. Dr. Simon Mills, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Adam. A great pleasure to be here. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you, man, and I'm happy to do this. So I just did this crazy formal introduction, but I would love if you could just take a minute. We'll give it a minute, 90 seconds, and take us up to this point. We don't have to go through all the detail of all the amazing stuff you've done, but where the hell in the world do you come from, man?
I was born in Perth, Western Australia. I left at about, 14 years old. My father got out of prison and took me on the road to teach me the trade of piano tuning and restoration. Learned a lifetime of knowledge from him in a short few years. Became a musician, started touring in rock bands, started a radio show which became nationally syndicated, and then that led to starting a jingle company that won the world's best jingle award. And I wrote my first book called How to Steal from Banks and Other Business Strategies and got it published in New York, and my publisher wanted me to move to New York and do book tours. I said, don't be ridiculous, I'm not that sort of writer. Eventually moved to New York, this was about 15 years ago, and started building innovative technologies and companies, and went into marketing and started my own agency, went into business with CBS Television, started raising capital, multiple ventures, and started an investment bank with the former CFO of Bloomberg, and now into the pandemic we've grown tenfold. We've got 10 portfolio companies, and I think 90 seconds is up, right? I think
there we go. And listen, guys, I mean, I could end the podcast here, but but I'm not. I want to go back to the days with your father. Did you like watch him with the pianos and always want to play, like, or was that something you were drawn to? Tell us a little bit about your musical roots. I'm always curious.
Sure. Well, he was a musical genius, and he was the musical director of Channel 7 in Australia, which I realise you probably won't know what that means, but
no idea.
It was a big deal, you know, and he could just arrange a 16-piece orchestra in his head from a cassette and write charts for everybody, hand out the music, and they'd play it, and they'd take back a chart and say, trombone 3, you know, correct it and hand it back. He was brilliant, and but he was also a talented tradesman and Irish alcoholic genius, as I sometimes said. Eventually got into some legal trouble and ended up on the wrong side of the law, which was a humorous story in itself. But yes, always surrounded by celebrities, musicians, because, you know, the rehearsals for national television shows were taking place in my lounge room.
That's amazing.
So there was always a musical influence.
That's incredible. Do you have a fond memory? Let's take it back, when you were young, maybe anywhere in that like 12, 13, 14-year age frame where your dad invited somebody into your house, maybe someone famous or not famous, but someone that had a real, true influence musically on you, on your style, your approach, maybe their swag, maybe the way they rolled in.
Well, there were those over the years. He had left my mother a lot earlier than that, so it was much more my younger years. And then we regrouped, many years later when I was about 14 years old, and went on the road together. So the super early years, it was, people like John Farnham or Johnny Farnham in those days, and, became a legendary entertainer. He was just a local entertainer back in those days, but he was in my lounge room, and, Rolf Harris was there doing rehearsals, and okay, it didn't work out so well for Rolf reputationally, but those are the kind of people that were passing through our lounge room when I was just a young fella.
And what would you say, is looking back on it now, like the greatest lesson that you learned from your dad that, every day, you're kind of like, glad I picked that up from him. I could see a little bit of my dad in me right now.
The survival tactics. He was an interesting fellow. We're on the road. I'm, before I had a driver's license, I'm driving this 6-ton truck and 22-foot caravan, and he's, drinking beside me, and we're going through towns and picking up work as piano tuners, and we'd advertise before we got to a place. We'd put an ad in the paper or whatever, or they'd do a story on us, so people knew we were coming across the Nullarbor, which is the Route 66 of Australia. It literally means no trees, and there'd be sheep stations there that take 2 days to get through. And you'd see a sign out that said "Piano tuner, stop here," because we knew, we had stories released in advance. So I mean, survival. I remember one time when we had zero money left. We couldn't even put gas in the truck, and we pulled into an army barracks, and he just absolutely made up the whole thing. Took in a clipboard, said there was we got a message there was a piano to be tuned, and he just made the whole thing up, and he just played the chance that somewhere on an army base of thousands of people in the officers' mess, and so there's going to be pianos, and someone will probably think we're there to tune it. And we did. We ended up having dinner in the officers' mess. We spent a day and a half fixing 2 pianos on the base, and and he just made the whole thing up with the clipboard. So what did I learn from him? Everything.
That's amazing. And have you written a book about your dad?
Well, he's very much featured in How to Steal from Banks and Other Business Strategies, which, I just called it that because it was an interesting title that people will pick up because they don't like banks. But it was an autobiography, really. I didn't actually steal anything from any banks, but I invented a few things that are now illegal, let's say.
I love it. And I mean, do you think that was the early training for you to come into New York City 15 years ago? To be able to be in the Big Apple and all the vices and listen, you're a little bit different situation in life now than you were back then, but New York is a special breed, man. Listen, I'm born and raised here. I got it built into me, but we take for granted when immigrants come into our town.
Well, no doubt it was preparing me all the way. I mean, this is about the hardest city in the world to walk into and make do and then do well. It's I was well prepared, and it was still the biggest challenge of my life to leave Australia and come here. And I thought it was going to be easy. It was not easy.
No, not at all. I want to go back to the Jingle side because your creativity oozes. Even before you ran into this interview running from the streets of New York, let's go back to the agency days and tell us about the Jingle. Tell us the word. If you don't mind, tell us the Jingle.
So, Jingles. I've always been a writer and a poet, and I started that before any of it when I was a kid, and other kids were out doing kid stuff. I was in my bedroom writing poetry, which was really uncool for a young man, who should have been out playing sport and doing all that stuff. And so it's always been just inherently there. It wasn't an option. I had to write, okay? And rhyming just came naturally as part of the musical thread in my DNA. So when we became a syndicated radio show, which was just, musicians coming in at 5 o'clock in the morning from gigs, in pretty poor shape by that time of the evening.
They were inspired. They were loose at that point.
That's right. Yes, and writing songs about whatever was the news headlines of that day, and performing it on air, and it became this big deal where it was more expensive to advertise in our slot than any other slot on the station, and then it just went across the country, and all of a sudden we were touring with radio stations, doing performances, and we started selling jingles to all of the advertisers on radio. So we grew it into a business pretty quick, smart. And we loved it. I would write in the bathtub, which was, I'm earning $30,000 sitting in the bathtub. And
this is
amazing.
Great. So someone's paying me to sit in my bathtub and write jingles.
It was incredible. I mean, it all changed, and I don't get to do that anymore. I still sit in the bathtub, and now I'm writing books. But it was good days where you could do that, and there was a lot of work involved in going out and doing the performances and meeting and interviews and running the business of running a jingle company. But writing the jingles was the great part that I really, really loved. And then we wrote a jingle that became the world's best jingle through virtue of the fact that the International Broadcasting Awards ran this competition called the World's Best. And it was in Hollywood. And we wrote this jingle for a pet grooming firm called Hydro Dog. And that was it. That was we won the award, and
you got to give us a jingle.
Oh, sing the jingle?
You could any way you want to present it.
Sure.
You could modernize it for 2021.
30 years ago.
You could put a reggae beat behind it. You could do whatever you want.
It went. A Hydro dog is a happy dog. He's feeling fine. He's a clean canine. Every doggy digs a Hydro Dog wash. What's a doggy do when he needs a shampoo and a clipping and a very special pat? Get on the dog and bone to Hydro Dog. He'll love it so much he'll be ringing us back. Hydro Dog is a happy dog. He's feeling fine. He's a clean canine. Everybody loves a Hydro Dog. So see, they work. You can remember it.
I want everybody who's listening here just to have this takeaway that you could be anything you want in life. That you could be anything. It all starts with inspiration. I mean, really, like the creative spark, and wherever it comes from. Where do you find you draw a lot of your creative inspiration these days?
It's all around. I mean, buying groceries, you're surrounded by amazing things, amazing people. We're in New York City. I mean,
amazing prices.
We have people coming to dinner here that I couldn't dream of meeting. Back in Australia when I was not even planning to live in America. The people that we know now that come and hang out are, people I idolized, Liberty DeVito. I wrote his book with him. I mean, his biography. I produced the book, and Billie Joe ended up writing the foreword for the book, and Billie and Liberty got back together through this process of producing this book. And he's hanging out. And I saw him on stage when I was a kid in Melbourne. I guess I was 20 years old or something in Melbourne, and saw Billie Joe and Liberty DeVito. It was breaking titanium drum parts with wooden sticks. This guy was the best drummer I'd seen. And still to this day, I think he's the greatest drummer in rock history.
Ooh,
and he's sitting at my dinner table eating steak with me.
Amazing. I mean, Billie's incredible. I mean, as a Long Islander, I mean, Billy Joel's our god. I mean, Long Island is Billy Joel, and it's just incredible to see the global reach, of some of these incredible musicians. And I've seen Liberty play. I've seen Billy Joel play for the last 25 years, at various points in and out of Billy, and it's incredible that you're able to now be in a place in life where you can invite amazing folks from all different aspects of life, all different walks of life, different inspirations, and bring them to you. So I want to talk about the entrepreneurial bug. And I'm saying that very lightly. Was this something that you had going back to your dad, watching him operate, like this whole idea of, listen, we got to figure out how to put food on the table. We got to figure out how to pay the bills. We got to figure out where money's coming from. Is that really the heart of the entrepreneurial spirit that you have now? Is that where it comes from?
I think it's there or it's not. I mean, you can't decide to be an entrepreneur, I don't think, and not to do it well lifelong. I mean, you might leave your job and decide to start a business or something, but I mean the heart of the entrepreneur, the ability to jump off the cliff and build an aeroplane on the way down, which is, I say that all the time because it's true. I mean, we're tokenizing our publishing company at the moment. I was signed to the publishing company. We ended up investing in it and taking it in as our portfolio company in our investment bank. And we decided we would tokenize it, which means every hardcover book in the company will be a token on the
NFT, right? We're talking NFT, folks. Yep.
Essentially NFT, and there's a lot in that discussion alone. We could talk for hours just about that.
We are not getting into that on this show, but
Right,
yes,
right.
I'm with you.
But I had done it before. I built blockchain-based companies, and I knew what to do. And to overlay that on a publishing company and be the first publishing company in the world to have tokenized books, meaning that you scan the token in the book and you claim it in a digital wallet, and that can go up and down in value over time, and creates a secondary market for the book. When it gets sold, the author gets paid again. And again,
changing the entire dynamic.
I'll stop there because I'm not even supposed to talk about that. But the bottom line is, I've actually put it into 250,000 books that are being printed right now in Hong Kong, and I haven't built the technology on the back end of it yet. So that's what I mean by jumping off a cliff and building a plane on the way down.
I was about to say, like, that's the mindset, right? And I feel it myself over the last few years launching I've always had this in me, and I just needed to break out of that shell, and everything flows after that. It was always in me. And that's why I think you and I are connected, because I get this energy from you, Doc. Like, it inspires me. I told my wife, I'm like, I'm just jumping on the phone with him. I'm not even doing. I'm like, we're just gonna do it, and she's like, yeah, like, go for it. How'd you get hooked up with Kevin Costner?
Oh, so he was our first client in the investment bank, and it was actually through Ruth McCartney. So Paul McCartney's sister and stepmother, Angie McCartney, are very close friends of our family, who we met through Australian rock legend Brian Cadd. Yeah. So it all comes back to the musical roots of the Australian scene. So ended up, becoming really good friends with the McCartneys, and they called one day, and they run a digital business and websites for all sorts of famous people, from John Cleese to who knows who else, and said, there's this, Kevin Costner and these two founders, Bill Whirl and Woody Sears, have got this app idea. And this is this former CFO of North Face, and Woody Sears had multiple exits in other digital app companies.
Right.
And we would, do you want to take a look at it? I said, well, what's it all about? Well, you're driving down the road and you look out the window and it's geo-triggered. So Kevin Costner's voice starts speaking about whatever's outside the window. And the app's called Here. And it's now launched, $1 million raised. And we took it on as our investment bank. This is the first deal in our investment bank.
And let's just put a timestamp on this, because this was pre-pandemic. This is before everyone fell in love again with the United States and doing cross-country travel.
So I'll give you a quick 10,000-foot view of how Ignition Capital came into being. I was working for a consulting firm, a management consulting firm, strategy execution consulting, turning it around, making it scalable and so forth. We're at a gig in Philadelphia doing a CEO conference, and I met Jacqueline Kapoor, the then divisional CFO at Bloomberg. And we got on really well, and she wanted to start making a move from Bloomberg and become an entrepreneur. She'd always had this. She'd been trained by Bloomberg, who's of course an exceptional entrepreneur and businessman. And we just hit it off, and we started talking about how we could take a startup, get it to investability with this remarkable financial credibility that came with her pedigree. And my innovation and, street smart, scrappy deal making, raise the capital.
Make shit happen.
Yeah, put it together and give the startups something that they can never afford. You can't hire a six-figure, almost seven-figure CFO in your startup. But if you do it for 10 companies or 20 companies, you can do it. And we did that, and I had this introduction already playing out. And we went in, closed that deal, and all of a sudden our first client is here with Kevin Costner. So a great foundation to begin a company. And then the pandemic hit, and it was really good for us. I mean, no two ways about it. We did very well through that time. It was very conducive to the way that I do business and the way that I interact with people. I'm very comfortable being a recluse and never leaving the house, and building relationships is absolutely an ability that I have remotely. In fact, we've just been working with a non-profit foundation, and we hadn't met all of the people in the foundation. We just spent 2 days out on Long Island at a horse stable and met all the people, including congressmen and all sorts of incredible people from all walks of life. We feel like there was no difference in the relationship that we built on screen as to being in person.
And that's a really interesting point to kind of unpack a little bit. I mean, for someone who has built a lifetime of incredible relationships, built in person, breaking bread, having a drink, incredible conversations, to take that all of a sudden remote, and you enjoy being a recluse. I mean, looking back on it, was this like, holy shit, I've been waiting for this day my entire life. I don't have to go anywhere.
Exactly what it was.
I don't have to go anywhere.
It was just licensed for everyone else being forced to do business the way that I'd like to. And I could never have made this happen. You know, you can't. I mean, before the pandemic, I was trying to influence people to come out and do meetings with me while walking in Central Park, instead of sitting in a bar or having a restaurant meal or whatever. And I could never get that really across the line. But this was just gold to me. It worked perfectly.
Oh, I love it. So let's spend a couple minutes, and I want to unpack Sir Rhymes-a-Lot, because I was privy, and thank you. Thank you for a couple things. Let me take a little gratitude moment here, Doc. Thank you for introducing me to the governor.
Of course.
It was, for me, it was an incredible exercise for me as far as interview preparation and research, because when you have an opportunity to interview somebody with that kind of resume, for lack of a better word, with that kind of life world experience, I had to do my work. I had to put in the work to make sure it was a great interview. And I did. And I got early access to his book. And the book is incredible. It wasn't like some bullshit, crappy book that I had to read. I mean, the stories in there are life-changing. I mean, we're talking about Muhammad Ali. We're talking his chapters on President Clinton and Trump are my favorite. Like they are my favorite. And there's a piece in there he says about like Bill Clinton, and I talked about it on the interview, where he was not attracted to Bill Clinton in a non-sexual way, but there's a charisma about Bill Clinton that he talks about that's contagious, and it's amazing to hear that and to hear those stories from him. So thank you for that opportunity. It was really incredible, and I'll link everybody up to that show. Definitely episode 99. Quick little plug there. But let's talk about Sir Rhymes-a-Lot. Where did the concept come and the core concept come from, and unpack that a little bit for everybody following at home.
Absolutely. My publisher, Steve Wilson, who started a company called Imagine and Wonder, which started in the pandemic. He moved from a transition from a job with a Japanese publisher called Gakken, but he'd been in major publishing companies all his life, including starting Hal Leonard in the UK. And he always wanted to bring my books into his publishing companies, but they never quite fit. And when he started his own firm, he said, I'm going to sign you, but I don't want to call it the Dr. Mills children's book thing. I don't want to be also ran with Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, you have the doctor thing. You can't be doing that.
That's right, and that's cool. I mean, and I saw an opportunity to go, well, if we just create some fictional character, and then I don't even have to go to the interviews, I could just send somebody else so they won't know who I am.
You were thinking 5 steps ahead.
Yeah, but he wasn't a fan of that. But Sir Rhymes-a-Lot just came about by this back and forth with he and I, and you know, the rhyming is an integral part of these books. Telling the story, communicating really musically, because the pulse and meter
cadence,
of the rhyming verse is musically based. And I've taken it one step further, incidentally, into visually introducing this rhyming aid so that colour delineates where the emphasis goes on each line. Yeah, so where's beat one while you're reading it? And I thought it was just simple. It just came about because I'm talking to Steve, and he said, well, this doesn't rhyme here. The meter doesn't work. And I said, yeah, it does. Started on word 3. He goes, well, how do you know? How do you know? How do you tell him that? I said, well, we'll change the colour. And I did. And we gave it to this this child literacy expert, and they said, this is incredible. I mean, child literacy goes very well with rhyming, but this is another thing. This is another level above that you've created here that nobody's ever come up with. I said, what colour? But it worked, you know. So anyway, so rhymes a lot.
Sometimes the simplest things are overlooked.
Exactly, that's where the best inventions come from. You just create them from necessity. So there he was. Sir Rhymes a Lot was born, and the next layer of that is, why don't we make a franchise that anybody can write for? So, you know, imagine if you could have written a Dr. Seuss book. Anyone could have written a Dr. Seuss book, because everybody writes stories now in a Dr. Seuss-esque style. Let's do that. So Rhymes a Lot now, we're going to start taking submissions, or the publisher will start taking submissions for Sir Rhymes a Lot books. So Alison, 11 years old, can be a Sir Rhymes a Lot author, and it goes beyond me, which is great, because my name's not even on the books. It just says Sir Rhymes a Lot.
So Sir Rhymes a Lot is something that's inside of everybody and anybody.
Yes, to put it into this format, take what your creative communication is. What do you want to say to the world through this medium, and write it in the style of Sir Rhymes a Lot. The publisher will have it illustrated, or you will, or maybe the author themselves is an illustrator.
Changing the game. And who do you have any, like? I'm going to dig in a little bit. Let's dig into Dr. Simon Mill's hip hop knowledge here. Let's take it back a little bit.
I have very limited hip hop knowledge.
Okay, but let's take it back here. Who would you love? Fine, no hip hop. Let's take it. Anyone from the world of music. Who would you love to do a book? Who would you love to hear someone's interpretation and someone to dig in and write their own Sir Rhymes a Lot book?
Well, Billie is the obvious choice, because Billie was one of my greatest influences as a piano player. Just the way that he puts chords with bass lines on piano was just the leading source of inspiration for me as a piano player. Beyond the early years of my father, what I really followed was Billie.
So riff on Billie for a moment here. Give me top 3 Billie songs.
Top 3? Well, you've got to have, that one.
That's scenes from an Italian restaurant, everybody.
Yeah, just happened to have a piano standing.
Well, you told in your notes you have 8 pianos in your apartment, 2 per person. I mean, there's literally a piano at reach for everybody. Just like I have a bottle of alcohol within reach of anything on my. I'm a terrible degenerate. I can't wait till we break bread in person. I told my wife, I go, one day we're gonna get that invite and we're gonna show up and it's gonna be the most interesting night of our life, and I promise you that. Billie, but like even Billie's journey. If you riff on Billie's journey, if you look at his entire catalog, like, the range and the story, it's his life. It's literally his biography.
Yeah, brilliant. And in Liberty's book, what I discovered was the whole backstory of how those songs really came together from somebody else's. I'd heard those from Billy Joel's stories, but from Liberty's perspective, if you listen to Say Goodbye to Hollywood, right at the end, there's a piece where Billy's recording vocal tracks and he's yelling out, "Hey, DeVito, where are you going?" And DeVito was just going to the bathroom, and Billy's yelling out to him, and it was on the track. So they left it in there because Billy thought it sounded like New York. Cool stuff like that. But, how those songs got formed from Billy writing this thing that it's okay, and Liberty would go, yeah, that's great. You've written another Neil Diamond song or whatever. He goes, damn it, I knew it was familiar. To hear this backstory of those things is quite incredible. And Liberty was just as involved as everybody else, at having those songs turn out to what they actually became.
I mean, so what era of Billie is your favorite?
Oh, I don't have a...
It's hard.
No,
he had a couple of weird... the poppy... I don't like the poppy stuff. Some of the poppy stuff I don't like too much.
Yeah, I love all of it. I have no but the things that really influenced me, Stiletto and New York State of Mind and Angry Young Man. I mean, that was the one where we went to the garden and my son saw Billy play that for the first time. And he's seen me play it, and it didn't inspire him all that much. But when he saw Billy doing that, he became a piano player. And my son Deco is a remarkable piano player, and he's going to be a professional musician if he's not already.
It's
through that,
it's amazing. I mean, my album is not a common one. I love River of Dreams, 1993 River of Dreams, and that is a very rhymey album. And to this day, with my children, my daughter's 9, my son is almost 3. I sing a lullaby based on that. I go, good night, my Ollie, time to close your eyes and save your troubles for another day. That's from River of Dreams. And it influenced me, and my kids sing it every night, and they want that song. Like, Billy is part of all of us. So let's switch gears for a moment here before we bring it home. Let's talk, this one fascinates me. I'm very curious. Talk to me a little bit about the plasma venture that you're working with Drexel University, and I believe you're testing with Pepsi to purify their bottles. Tell us a little bit more about that. That's fascinating.
Yeah, we got into into plasma technology a little while back. Started doing some experiments, and Drexel were doing some amazing things. And there's nothing new about plasma technology, really, except it's never been adopted or commercialized in ways that it should be. And it has advantages in the medical space, in water purification, in growing food.
Right.
The fourth state of matter. I've learned a lot about it over the years, and it's like sitting down with a table of Einsteins, and you feel like the idiot in the room, but we're there to commercialize what they know, and absolutely fascinating. But what we discovered and what was taught to us is using plasma affected water, you can kill pathogens that normally take out plants in systemic environments, in growing out in fields. There's ways to decrease fertilizer and chemical use or eliminate it completely. So we're going through the process at the moment of testing with hemp and how to germinate seeds and have exponentially increased germination and plant sustainability, and without having negative effects of fertilizers and other chemicals.
Fascinating. It sounds like you. Correct me if I'm wrong here. You have a real love of learning.
Yes, I was taught by Dr. Henry Anderson. I think the most important thing I learned from him, the founder and the Chancellor of City University Los Angeles, where I obtained my business doctorate, and he taught me that degrees are not what you're chasing. I was talking about doing a medical degree at one point, and he said, "Well, why?" He said, "Are you going to be operating on people?" I said, "No, I hope never to talk to a patient if I became a medical doctor." And I said, "It's just medical research and my love of understanding, that level of human anatomy and so forth." And he said, "Well, if you just want to learn it, you just go and learn it. You don't have to enroll into NYU and
pay all that money.
You learn what you want to learn." And that was just, it seems very simple, but it was an epiphany for me, and I can learn anything I want. And now Dr. Anderson has died, and I am the acting chancellor, but you know who's going to be the chancellor of City University Los Angeles, or cula.edu?
Let me guess.
Governor David Patterson. Oh, sorry. You said let me guess, and I didn't let you guess.
Let me guess. What kind of shitty game show is this? You would not make a good game. I thought at first you'd maybe I know I'd be a good game show host. You would not be, because you Jeopardy. You would not be you're not the next Alex Trebek. So let's just make sure we all know that here. So listen. I could literally spend 3 hours going through this list and go through every single thing that you've done here. But what's next on the horizon? And we're not talking specifics here, but is there a certain area, maybe something that came up during the pandemic? Maybe you see a need for it. But what are you going to tackle next?
Yeah, it's education for one. I was asked in an interview only a few days ago, what I would do if I had unlimited resources.
That's a
And
good question.
I said I'd just keep on writing books until the money runs out. But I would continue certain things. One of them is the whole Rewilding Canna Foundation piece. The other is just writing. I'm so passionate about writing, and that whole medium is remarkable. The science, the innovation, but education is what's come to light in the pandemic. For me, and I saw it straight away when my daughter was so upset about not being able to go to school anymore, and I said, this is a huge opportunity, and to let the idea of learning in different ways permeate and ferment, and that's exactly what happened. It's now open. There is a $6 billion company called Coursera, which is a MOOC, a massive online open course, or series of courses.
I know them well.
Yeah, so with CULA, the reinvention of CULA, which is a dormant university at this point, and we have the opportunity to create something brand new, a new platform. That's what we've been studying, and the pandemic has given us license to build something new and creative in that world. And what we're looking at is something like Coursera, but making it available for minorities at a much lower cost. So this whole idea of having a university education without having to pay for it for the rest of your life, and even earn money while you're doing it, that's an area worth exploring that I just love, because I like learn it every day. All I want to do is learn.
And it's fascinating, the people like yourself that could actually affect change, that have the means, that have the connections, that have the ability to do so. Focusing, niching down. That's a big lesson for everybody. Niching down on one core thing that you could affect. Let me ask you this. Looking back now, looking in that rearview mirror, Doc, you're looking in that rearview mirror. What was that biggest failure? Not life failure, career failure, business failure, that you look back on and you say, thank fucking God that was a nuclear implosion, because looking back on it now, X amount of years later, I am thankful that happened to me.
I have a lot of those, actually, and I've had more failures than successes, no question.
Sign of a true entrepreneur.
The real estate venture I did with CBS Television was really an intriguing one. I made so many mistakes in this, but I also just lucked into the most incredible journey and created a real estate platform when it was illegal to do so in the way that we were doing it. And I got a law of the virtual office website ruling when the Department of Justice sued the National Association of Realtors for restraint of trade, and I bent it into my into my model, and was able to build a ubiquitous real estate portal with all of the MLSs aggregated into one place, with 30,000 real estate agents across the country, and then insert it into CBS's website. Right at the time that Zillow was forming. They started a little earlier than I did, but they couldn't be transactional. I was able to be transactional, and that's the law that I navigated and found a loophole
Circumvented.
in. Yes, indeed. Fortunately, CBS brought in a new head operator, the digital operator, and he wanted me to do something completely different. And I said, that's fine. The 1.5 million that we've already invested, just give that back to us, and we'll build whatever you want. But I don't want to build that thing that you want to build. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. And that was the end of that. I'm very glad that happened. I went and did it with other media companies and grew it into something else, and we exited that.
Right, like you don't know in that moment. You don't know when that's going down the toilet bowl. That you can look back on that and be like, wow, we are onto something here, and that was meant to be.
The point that I knew that deal was done was, I spent my whole life promoting what I was doing, because that's the life of the entrepreneur. When I went into business with CBS, I got a call from, I think, Cranes. They wanted to do a story, and I told them the whole story, and they put it in there, and then Fox Business was calling all these other real estate people for opinions, because they were going to do a story on it the next day, and CBS called me and said, did you talk to Cranes? I said, yeah, I did. They said, we don't talk to the media. So what do you mean? I'm an entrepreneur. I talk to everybody.
Yeah,
What do you say? No. And the next day, Standard & Poor's and somebody that I knew, Nancy Pax, was representing my side of the argument in real estate, and the CBS stock price was on the screen going down because CBS television was going into the real estate business. And at this time, the president of CBS was in the hospital with his wife who was giving birth, and on the screen he's watching the stock price go down and making the call going, who the hell is Simon Mills and why is he saying we're in the real estate business with him? Because we had built the local version, but they were behaving like it was already the national version, because I told Cranes that was the plan. And it was the plan, but CBS apparently didn't know that.
So you're responsible for tanking businesses, global conglomerates. Well done. To know that you have that effect on people. So Doc, let's bring it home here. This show is my masterclass. This show is my MBA. This show is my doctor, because I get to not just talk to amazing people like you, but be connected. And I think we definitely we have a connection. And I am really looking forward soon to breaking bread with you and shooting the shit and really getting into it. But let me ask you this. What is the single greatest piece of advice that you've ever received in your entire life that you take action on every single day?
Do what's right and don't run out of money was one of my favourites, which I think was the founder of Gracious Home said that. But my
like your mantra when you wake up in the morning. What do you?
Yeah, well, my superpower is ignorance of my limitations. Because if I knew how hard something was going to be, and if I knew that how ignorant I was on a certain subject, I would not attempt it. And that is a clarity that other people have that I do not possess. And so ignoring what everybody says around you about something not working. Everybody's always doing focus groups to find out what other people think. What other people think is not what's important. What's in your heart. If you think you can get it done, if it should be in the world, that's the thing that I want to do. And asking other people's opinions, they would be inventing it if they could. Steve Jobs was beautiful at it when he said, people don't know what they want until you give it to them. And then that is exactly it. You're an innovator. You can't share that with anybody else. You have to build it and see if it works.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And let's talk about the pandemic for a little bit here. Like, obviously, there's been incredible amounts of global destruction, people's lives ruined, death, illness. I mean, we're literally living through a fucking plague. It's like the Passover Seder here every single day. But there's been good. And we like to call those silver linings. I'd love if you could share a couple of silver linings that you've experienced over the last year and a half, professionally, personally, whatever's in your heart.
Yeah.
Aside from being a recluse and this being your dream come true.
Yes. Aside from that, I think
it's just like a global apocalypse to make you feel comfortable in your own nice New York City apartment.
That's right. Aside from the death and destruction, there has been great things. I mean, we grew a company out of nothing and in this strange soil that we're growing it in, but it turned out to be the perfect environment for it. I think families have learned a lot about, themselves. Our family certainly has. Things came to the surface that have ended up in a wonderful place that never, perhaps never would have come this way when you're all in close quarters and you're every day with each other. You get to see a lot more and be aware of a lot more and change the way that you approach things, perhaps, that you otherwise wouldn't. I know that there's a lot of people coming out of it that are not staying together.
That's a dark
maybe
time.
that's a good thing for them. Maybe that's brought that to the surface earlier than it would have, and they now have realised that they're going to take advantage of the rest of their life, and they're maybe in the wrong place. Whatever. I've seen it. We just had a lunch today, one of the first lunches back out in the world, which I struggled through. But all my friends are getting divorced. So that's interesting, but I think that it's shaken things up and new good things are coming out of it. There's better ways to work. There's better ways to not commute. Let's not, collectively in an organisation of thousands of people, you're wasting tens of thousands of hours just getting people,
Time,
moving them around
carbon
to be
footprint.
less productive, because when they're together they're actually less productive. There's times where they need to be together and make that time productive,
Make it
and
count.
great things come out of that, but you don't have to do it every day.
That's it. That's it. That's the takeaway here. That's exactly. Let's synthesize this here, everybody. It's just what we came out of this as far as a new way to work is maximize the collaboration time as necessary. Eliminate the unnecessary time. Increase productivity. It's better for the environment. Better for everybody else. Give people the option. Give people the flexibility. That's what it comes down to.
We have this new relationship with Canna Foundation, and they're our client and partner, and it's all about rewilding and native American species being the wild horse. It's currently called an invasive species, but it's actually a Native American species, and we can prove that now. But Canna Foundation has this wonderful facility out on Long Island with a stable with 12 stalls and this amazing place to run corporate retreats. So we're launching that right now, and you can go out for your corporate retreat, your off-site, whatever you call it in your company. Yeah. Get together with 20, 30 people, stay in teepees, hang with horses, be educated on what rewilding is. So rewilding your company, bringing it back to a natural state, whether it's a personal natural state, eating properly, whatever. Rewilding is a term that everyone's going to start hearing now more and more. Leonardo DiCaprio has just gotten into a new organization called Rewild, and it's this process. So one of the books that's coming out this year in the publishing company is called Born to Rewild with Manda Kalemian, and I worked on the book, and it brought us into Canna Foundation and educated us on that. But again, this pandemic has shown us, bringing us back. Pandemics are a result also of taking a native species out and not being respectful of the biodiversity. All of this plays into it. I won't get into the science now. We work with some pretty heavy scientists that explain this beautifully, and maybe you could interview those guys because they're remarkable.
Oh yeah, I got to do some research for that one.
Yeah, I just did a book called Cello Comes Home with the curator of zoology and paleontology and mammalogy of the American Natural History Museum, at the American Natural History Museum, Dr. Ross McPhee. And he teaches me every time I'm sitting next to him. I happen to be sitting next to him for the last 2 days, and just ask him any question.
Osmosis.
It's amazing, man, what happens, what you learn from these knowledgeable people.
Just listen, open your ears, people, listen. So, Doc, let's bring it home here. You've had a fascinating life and career. And when you look back on it and you look at those moments when maybe things weren't so good early on at any point in your life, and you had to dig down deep and really, really harness that fire and harness that inner tenacity to pull you up and pull you forward. In the same breath, we're sitting here right now. Life is good. Family, health, business, success. And you want to show gratitude. Dr. Simon Mills, what is your compass? What is your North Star?
Wow. I think there's 7 questions in there.
There's really one question. What is your drive in life? What is your focus? What motivates you? What is your why?
Yeah, and, when I sit and I write, I learn about myself. And what I learn when I'm doing this conversation with myself in this writing process is exactly that. Why am I doing this? Because the process of writing is one thing, but there's got to be an end in sight. There's got to be a reason for the writing, apart from the therapy that I'm giving myself by writing. And, I get great joy from working on anything that I feel has ended the day, leaving the world in some other state. And it might be just my small world around me, and other days it might be something more significant. But having achieved something that I feel is additive, it hits me as being completely and absolutely fulfilling, that I am achieving something that is good, that's changing things for better, because there's so much that goes against that. You're fighting this insurmountable battle constantly with greed and just people who want to and organisations that want to counter that and for their own good, and going against that using creativity, I feel is putting good force back into it to guide the world. And if other people see that and see the results of that, it will educate them. So that's it, in my convoluted way of getting to whatever point that is. That's how I feel about it.
Dr. Simon Mills, I want to thank you for joining us today. This has been incredible for me, and I hope everyone listening to this has enjoyed this journey. Dr. Mills is an incredible human. He's a fascinating story. You can find out more. You can check out more at simonmills.com. That's 2 L's at the end of that, right? 2 L's.
I might have to update that sometime. I think it's 5 years out of date. But yes,
man, you did that. Internet 1.0. Check out Ignition Capital. Where else? Where else do you want to send people? What else should they be checking out?
Yeah, well, ignitioncapital.co is great. But Canna Foundation is our newest venture and doing great work. ImagineandWonder.com is the publishing company.
Check out Sir Rhymes a lot.
Yeah. Well, ignitioncapital.co is the source of all of our activities, so that you can see everything there as to all of our portfolio companies and things we're involved in, or just reach out to me by any of those places, and we'll do what we can.
Unbelievable. Dr. Simon Mills, thank you for joining me today on the podcast. Hang with me for a moment here as we sign off. And everyone listening, I hope you enjoy this trip that we just took down Dr. Simon Mills Road over here. Always fascinating, always incredible. If this show resonated with you, please leave a review, a rating. It goes a long way. Share it. Sharing means caring. Maybe I'll write a Sir Rhymes a Lot book with my kids because I'm inspired here. Remember, everyone out there, take care of each other. Take care of each other. Remember, there's other people in this universe that you have to look out for. You know where to find us, at thepodcast.com for more. And catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast. Take care, everybody.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search the podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.